Okay, we've heard about the outreach and education that a community farm can provide, and we've heard about how accessible the space will be to everyone in the community. But how can we provide a sustainable farm for the community at no cost to the town? We will answer that question in two parts, because there are two important aspects to sustainability: ecological and economic. One of the benefits this proposal offers the town is to provide a model of sustainable land management for a property that is so integral with the sensitive wetlands of the Monroe Brook and the Arlington Reservoir. The Lexington Community Farm would use farming practices that work in harmony with natural systems. These are practices that are well understood and taught in modern agricultural programs. In brief, it means caring for the soil, water, and air to ensure healthy land, healthy food, a healthy watershed, and a healthy wildlife corridor that supports a diversity of life, including, in this case, thriving migrant bird populations. Lexington is fortunate in that all of the soil on the farm is known as Hinckley, a soil type classified by the USDA as of state and local importance for farmland. Sustainable farming means applying organic soil amendments, composting, use of crop rotation, use of physical barriers to defend against pests and weeds, and similar practices. Carbon inputs and outputs are carefully considered in all farming decisions. A sustainable farm would continually work to incorporate green technologies, such as gray water management and solar power. Lexington's 2009 Open Space and Recreation Plan update cited the Busa farm as one of Lexington's few open meadows, which provides habitat variety in Lexington and is particularly important for certain butterfly, bird, and small mammal species. Continued farm use would maintain this valuable meadow habitat. So how can a farm like this be economically sustainable while paying for a farmer, paying for supplies, and providing so many additional services to the community? The short answer is that the land provides the means. The CSA-based business model that we are proposing involves growing fresh produce and distributing it through multiple channels, including selling CSA shares, donating to low-income families and individuals, and selling directly to the public. In a CSA program, shareholders prepay for a share of the farm's produce, usually before the growing season even begins. Then, starting in June, they receive a weekly share of the harvest. The benefit for the farm is that the CSA shareholders share in the risks and bounties of farming, good years and bad. The CSA model has proven to be a reliable and economically sustainable model for small farms, including community farms. There is an extremely high demand for CSA shares in our area. Waltham Fields sells out its 300 shares a full year in advance, and it has a waiting list. Smaller farms, like Newton Community Farm, typically sell out their CSA shares within a week. With limited land available, these farms can't keep up with demand. This farm needs at least 5 acres under cultivation, as well as the existing infrastructure of the greenhouses, the well, and the farm stand. Produce from this acreage would pay for salaries, benefits, insurance, seeds, supplies, utilities, maintenance, and equipment. In this way, the farm would not need to rely on town funds to support production and distribution. With the revenue from the CSA shares, we estimate that the Lexington Community Farm would be able to donate 10% of its produce to food banks or other food charities. In addition, 5% of the total CSA shares available would be sold at a significant discount to low-income families. In addition to the CSA and food donations, the farm would continue to offer produce for sale to the community at the farm stand, at farmers markets, and through pick-your-own produce opportunities. Besides the farm's own fresh produce, farm stand sales would include seedlings, plants, produce purchased wholesale from other area farms, and other locally produced goods to diversify the offerings. For those who work or might not be able to take advantage of the farm in other ways, the farm stand still provides a community connection. The budget summary I'm about to show you involves hiring a professional farm manager who oversees every aspect of the farm operation. That includes managing an important aspect of a community farm that doesn't appear in a budget: namely the enthusiastic volunteers who want to be actively involved in caring for a valued community resource. Here's the summary of a 5-year business plan for the community farm model we are proposing. I just want to make a few key points. First, this budget is broken up into 3 main components: the farming operations, the education programs, the events and membership. The farming operation is what makes the community farm economically sustainable. To see this, let's look at year 3. The farm operation has generated a surplus. This surplus begins to contribute towards paying for the education programs. These first 5 years of the budget involve ramping up field production and education programs, building the membership base, and paying off the startup loan. Once peak efficiency is reached, the farm is on track to show a cumulative profit after only 5 years in operation, as seen in the yellow box. The graph you now see shows the relationship between the farm operation budget alone, the dotted line, and the farm and education budgets together, the solid line, over those first 5 years. The point here is that at the end of year 5, the farm operation is able to entirely support the education programs on an annual basis, and the combined operations have a surplus. This would continue into the future, thereby establishing an economically self-sustaining community farm. This model of a sustainable community farm works for 2 reasons. It is able to use the existing infrastructure on site as a base, and it makes use of the land to provide revenue. A minimum of 5 acres under production is needed to provide the revenue for a sustainable operation that in turn will allow for food donations, education, and on-site recreational opportunities that make it a community farm. Another community farm could certainly be imagined with only some of the infrastructure or less production acreage, but it would be a different farm, providing fewer services for fewer people, and it would likely not be economically sustainable. As production acreage of a community farm increases, the need for funding will be reduced, and more community programs will be available. The slide you're looking at shows what the effects are of increasing the productive acres under cultivation from a 2-acre farm, similar in size to the Newton Community Farm, to the 5 acres we are proposing. As each acre under production is added, the losses become smaller and smaller until a surplus is achieved with a 5-acre farm after 5 years. The differences are because most farming-related expenses are fixed costs. What that means is regardless of the size of the farm, the costs to run it don't change dramatically. No matter how many acres a farm has, it needs to pay a farm manager. It must have farm equipment and infrastructure, and the equipment will always need maintenance. The main difference between a 2-acre farm and a 5-acre farm is the amount of revenue generated to pay for those costs.
A community farm is a farm that is formed to serve the needs and desires of the community, and it encourages participation and enjoyment by everyone. Over time, we'll find ways to improve productivity and expand programs while also protecting the local environment. The community farm will continue to grow from a cycle of shared learning among staff, volunteers, visitors, and residents. Everyone who chooses to be involved with the farm will make a difference in its future. I hope you've seen from this presentation that we've done a great deal of research to determine what it takes to operate a community farm. We are fortunate to have had access to successful community farms in Waltham, Concord, Lincoln, Natick, Weston, and Newton. The farmers and board members of these farms have been very helpful in describing to us what makes their farms successful. The primary thing we've learned is that the success of any community farm is directly related to the strong sense of pride and connection residents have to it. They see it as their farm, and they see it as a reflection of their special town. We believe Lexington is a special town. We also believe this is Lexington's time, and the Busa farmland is Lexington's place to have its own unique and wonderful community farm.